know, when you drive somewhere and you have a list of 5 people you might phone. And I've lost 2 of those 5 people through this process. And that's a pretty big impact. You know, the process of administration and insolvency definitely doesn't end the day you press a button.
Hey, welcome to the Tough Decisions podcast with me, Andrew Rosler. I'm pleased to be joined by John Gyngell from the North Brewing Company. John, we met a few weeks ago, a book launch at a firm of solicitors. We had a 5-minute conversation. You knew what I did. And I'd mentioned that I was going to do something like this, and you were really keen. I think you mentioned maybe at some stage you might want to write a book, which was a kind of quite validating from my perspective in terms of this whole process. But as you know, the purpose of the podcast is to get a perspective on the mental health challenges and resilience and those people who run a distressed business and had to make those tough decisions. Can you give us maybe a 1-minute appraise in terms of if I met you in a bar, what do you do? Then maybe explain a little bit about the business in particular.
Well, I guess I meet most people in bars over a beer. So what do I do? So since 1997, well, prior to that as well, I've been in hospitality. We opened our first bar in 1997 in Leeds. We grew that bar group to up to 10 over time. And then in 2015, we started our own brewery, which is North Brewing Co. I guess, you know, very brief potted history of that is that we grew from 2015 to 2020. We doubled capacity and turnover every year. You know, everything was great and life was brilliant. And then I think, you know, I'll mention that I'll drop the C-bomb several times in this interview probably, and then COVID hit. And it changed everything for us. And I think, you know, the past 4 years, particularly with the brewery, has been, you know, very choppy waters. And we've been fighting ever since. And then in January this year, the brewery went into administration. So that's a brief potted history of the last 27 years of my life.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sure there's more to it than that. We'll get into some of that detail later, John. Thank you. Yeah. Why did you agree to do this? What do you want to get out of it? And what do you want others to learn?
Personally, what do I want to get out of it? I don't know. I don't know if I want or need to get anything out of it. I think it's nice for people to know they're not alone. I think it's a horrible thing to have gone through. I think it's something that's possibly frowned upon by the outside world because they don't understand it. You know, without entrepreneurs and businesses, no one would have a job. So really, we're pretty vital to the economy, and I think, you know, things do go wrong. You know, it's a very, very lonely place to be. I did a talk over in Porto at the Beer Strategy Conference last week, and the number of people that came up to me afterwards saying, "Oh my God, we're in the same position," or "We've been thinking about it for 2 or 3 years." Life is, you know, as an entrepreneur, most entrepreneurs pay themselves last. You know, there's a payroll to pay, and you look after everyone else before yourself. So it can be, that whole journey can be lonely. And especially when it goes wrong, all those people that you've looked after all that time, they're generally okay, and you're not.
Absolutely. In terms of when you first set up, I always believe you should set up a business with some kind of exit strategy because it keeps you focused. Some people think, no, I've got the energy, I've got the kind of the drive and the ideas. I'm just going to go for it, and we'll see what happens along the way. So just your thoughts on that, please.
Well, like I say, you know, I started with my business partner. Very lucky to have a business partner, Christian. So we started that business when we were 24. And when you're 24, generally you're pretty stupid and you don't have a care in the world. So there was definitely no exit strategy, but it was something that worked. and we loved beer, we loved the people in it, and we wanted to be more involved in it. So we started the brewery 2015, and it was a brilliant success. No two ways about it. You know, we lasted 27 years. We didn't have a business failure. We grew and grew and grew. We employed hundreds and thousands of people. We raised X tens of £1 million in tax, etc. And life was and is good. Yes, we'd have done some things differently, but would it have fundamentally changed the outcome, given what the past 4 years have brought us? I don't know. I think, you know, the one thing I would say is get cash into your business. I think kind of what we didn't successfully do, and again, you know, we were potentially a victim of circumstance and timing, was we didn't get enough cash into the business. We didn't raise enough capital. Since it's happened, I've lost count of the number of people who've said, "I wish I'd have known John," which is horribly frustrating. But it's again, you know, you can meet the right person in the right bar at the right time or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Had you had maybe 18 months, 2 years warning, and even when it was on the doorstep, it was still to some degree, it was kind of disregarded. It all happened very quickly. But had those warnings been there, what could you have done? And also, what do you think the industry can do, perhaps in terms of readiness going forward for any acts of God like that?
I think one thing we would have done was try to get cash into the business, capital into the business. But I'm pretty sure that the answer would have been a no, because of the warnings in place, which is really something that happened to us. You know, we were just about to double the size of our brewery back in February 20. In March 20, we signed for where I'm at now, in this huge 24,000 square feet warehouse, and we had the funding lined up. Then COVID hit, and that funding was withdrawn. So hindsight, or if we had warning, then we'd have gone out and get cash in the business. But would that cash have been there? Possibly not, because I think people looked after the cash pretty tightly when people started to find out what was coming or what was here. You know, we were lucky enough to be able to come to work. We carried on what we were doing at the brewery. We had just signed, you know, very fortunately, again, you know, luck and timing, we signed a great deal with a national supermarket in February of that year, which went live in April of 20. So it was genuinely exciting at times. So it wasn't all doom and gloom, but I think the other side of it, I genuinely don't think we had time to think about whether it was all of us or it was just head down, let's go into protect mode, let's go into survive mode, and you know, that's kind of what most of us are quite good at.
You kind of question now, thinking, you know, with perhaps another month, if only this would have happened, it probably could have, you know, there was a conversation to set. So any kind of missed opportunity, you think, that would have been that could have saved the business, or perhaps it could have ended more positively.
Yeah, we went ballsy, you know, and I think we like I say, we doubled our capacity. We had to spend our COVID loans on the fit out of this place, because we'd lost that funding because of COVID. And should we have done that? Possibly not. But you know, we were, like we say, you know, up until that point, we were growing, doubling capacity, doubling turnover every year. Did we know that COVID would last potentially 2 years? No. I think we thought it'd be 1 month, 2 months, 3 months max. None of us knew what it was or what was there. So yeah, in hindsight, we should have put our cards down and left the table and gone, we're all right, we've had a good night, we'll stay there, we'll come back tomorrow. But we put our cards on the table. We thought we had a great hand, and COVID or the world had a better hand, I think, maybe.
Yeah, and the thing is that's kind of in you, isn't it? That drive and that kind of upbeat mentality. It's difficult to just turn that off. Certainly when it's something that's out of your out of your control. But just going back a couple of points, you mentioned there that you said it was exciting, you were ballsy, you perhaps still going kind of hell for leather. That takes a lot out of you when you kind of stand still and reflect. Was that because you felt you had to? Was that to show leadership and optimism and hope to some of your stakeholders and staff and all the rest of it? Or was that just kind of instinct that's in you?
Both, I think. It was were the days when you wanted to lie in bed and not go out. Yeah, absolutely. But you've got a team of people. You've got 100 jobs to protect. So you get up and you get on with it. And haven't felt the implications from that yet. I don't know if at some point, especially after what's happened the past 4 months, at some point, do I come crashing down? I don't know. I don't think so. There's been a lot of protecting other people all the way through this, and not just the past 4 months, past 4 years. And how do you juggle that? I don't know.
Can you perhaps, share some of the other emotions and even kind of some of the kind of physical implications that you went through, even now reflecting, thinking, do you know what, that might have been because of what was going through?
Yeah. Physically, sleep has been really difficult because you are lying awake thinking about all this all the time. I think the overriding feeling is probably one of guilt. There's a bit of shame. You feel like you've let people down. I as part of that, conversation earlier about who you tell, I didn't see my mum and dad for 2 months because I didn't want to take them on the journey, because that journey changed, from January through to, well, maybe January through to the end of February. The picture changed almost by the hour some days. So taking other people on that journey would have been impossible, and the worry that would have brought them, the stress that would have brought them was just absolutely no go. So most of it was in there.
A situation like this can be the making or breaking of some business partnerships.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned before shame and letting people down, but there's also betrayal and blame. You think, you start looking at other factors, and sometimes that can be within the boardroom, and these little, kind of slightly visible splits can become kind of canyons.
Yeah.
So can you just touch briefly on that relationship, whether you saw, how did he cope? Again, he's not here to kind of talk, so I obviously appreciate discretion, but just kind of tell about that, how that relationship might have changed and moved and solidified over this process.
I don't think we've had time to catch up. I think it probably has changed. I don't see how it can't change during this, process like this. We're still here. We still own a business together. We still have plans to do more together. So it definitely hasn't broken us. Has it changed us? Yeah, I'm sure. There was a third director in the business who, unfortunately, was a brilliant friend of mine for 35 years, and that relationship has gone. And it was only really last night that I reflected on that, and I don't think I've had time to understand the loss that I've got there. So have I processed that yet? No. Do I know how big that loss is yet? No. And it's really sad. It's horrible. But I guess these things happen.
were there occasions where there was a taking of the business home and potentially suggesting or actually putting some personal assets, etc., on the line?
We've been there, we've done it. So we've signed PGs. You know, we and it's, you don't think about those PGs until they come home, literally. And that's, you know, that's been absolutely stressful. Are you going to lose your house? You know, I am very fortunate because I'm not going to. We've managed to, we've got another business with the bar business, so we've novated a lot of the PGs and loans we had to another business, which is okay, and we'll get through. But it's a we'll get through, we'll survive. So you go into this survival mode. I think at home I've been supremely fortunate in that my partner, she understands the process. She works in finance, so she understands some of the characters, some of the people involved, some of the firms involved in what we've been going through. So I've had someone who can inform and who actually knows more than I do about this process, which is so fortuitous. If I hadn't had that, you know, I've been, you know, those nights when you wake up in the middle of the night thinking, they're doing that, they're talking to those people, who's doing that? Why are they talking to them? And it'll go round and round and round your head, and you'll do it for 4 or 5 hours, and then, like I say, so fortuitous that she's been waking up going, John, you are talking rubbish. Your head is talking rubbish. They cannot do that. They will not do that. That is not something that they can do. Which, you know, they're so fortunate to have that, because at certain points in this process, it would have been so easy to lose your mind. Because really, when it comes down to it, you think you're losing everything. You know.
Yeah, and losing your business, losing your home, friendships. It's not, obviously you've thankfully not as kind of severe for you, but that does happen to people.
Yeah.
But you've mentioned there's obviously various points where you've been very low and sleep. Now these are kind of mental and physical conditions, you know, and emotions that you've gone through. And if you had a sore tooth, you go to the dentist. You know, you broke an arm, you go to A&E or whatever.
Yeah.
So what professional help did you take? Did you consider? Did you disregard it? Could there be more awareness? So just what your reflections on
did I disregard it? Yeah.
Why?
I think it's just so busy and so in it. I think my personality, I'm not sure it's necessarily for me. I was told to go and see someone, and I said, you know, I've got stuff to do. I'm too busy for this. I think the why, probably because I'm stubborn and don't take advice very well. I think the interesting.
It's only you, though, isn't it? It's only for you, and there's no, you're not, from a kind of reputation or pride or ego perspective. There's no winner, is there? It's just down to you.
Yeah, I know.
So was it a case of I don't want to tell somebody I'm getting help, or I couldn't live with myself if I got help? What was the? Well, that's too much of a kind of binary question.
No, it was probably a doubt whether someone could help me, or whether I needed it. Because you're in your own head and you think your own head's okay. It's only when someone else very close to you says, I think you should probably see someone, that you start thinking about it. I think I've definitely withdrawn from public life a little bit more than I did previously. So going to industry events is really hard. Probably because you don't want to talk. You know, there's only so many times you can talk about this. And actually, it's really nice just to go to the pub and talk rubbish and laugh. But then more often than not, you'll get interrupted by someone who wants to talk about it, who wants to empathize, wants to sympathize with you. But you know what? You don't want to talk about it because you were all talked out. You want to laugh and you know, because I was actually at an event the other night, and I was laughing with people I'd never met before, and it was brilliant and so freeing. And I did take a moment to think, I remember this. This is how it used to be. So it has been really difficult getting back into that, showing your face. I've come off X or Twitter because there were far too many people out there who could run North better than I could, apparently, and telling the world where we went wrong and telling me where I went wrong. And you know, it took about 3 hours for me to go, do you know what? I do not need that in my life. So I've kind of, you know, backed off from social media because I think, you know, that could really turn you over. And you know, there are lots of people, there are quite a few people out there who I would call friends and who I've known in the business world for a few years who have said some things that you know, makes me not want to see those people ever again. What's really interesting is the number of phone calls I've had from contemporaries saying, you know, John, can you tell me how you did this? Can you tell me why you did it? Because we're in a very similar situation. There were a lot of times when we had to make a hell of a lot of decisions, some of them like that, about things that we didn't truly know about. So in this process, you're making decisions on using words and phrases and forms that you haven't got a clue what they mean. So are you making informed decisions? No.
There's an expression, failing to plan is planning to fail. I think it's quite useful to not plan to fail, but plan for failure in terms of the contingency. List all that. I know before you can talk yourself out of any good idea, but you know, in terms of some of the huge issues locally and around the world that have gone on, are going on, anything could happen at any time. You know, the lights just could go out, literally, I guess. So do you think that somebody setting up business, yes, they need an exit, there needs to be a reason to do it, to cast, you know, suck all the enthusiasm out of them, but do you think that ought to be some awareness and education about the ending of a business in a negative fashion rather than the holiday in the Bahamas?
Well, yeah, I mean, I still think I'm going to get a villa in Mallorca. So it's yes, it would be useful, but would an entrepreneur listen or be interested? I think that's the problem. You know, and maybe the problem is that it could scare everyone off. It wouldn't have scared me off, and I've been through something horrific. Would it have scared me off the past 7 years or the past 8 years of running North Brewing? No, not a chance. I think it's really great that you kind of said, you know, we didn't abuse the insolvency regime, because for me, it's, you know, that very few people would choose this option. You know, personally, financially, everything else, it is horrific. It's not an option that you would go, right, that's an easy option, we'll do that, we'll flip it tomorrow. That is not how this works. The implications of what happens will be going on for me for the next few years, and I wouldn't, you know, it's not fun, and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, and it's not something we ever wanted to do, and it's definitely not something I want to do again. But has it changed the way I run my other business? Yes. You know, would we ever go there again? No. Would you know, maybe it's an age thing, but now at this point, it's about life and a life business rather than a chasing growth and chasing that and the next thing. And you know, I think that's possibly the change that it's brought. That I'm very much at peace with what we've done, and I've loved it, every second of it, apart from the last couple of months. And I'm really grateful for the implications it will bring for the future business, because I'll enjoy it a lot more.
Yeah, and looking back in 10 years, you can say that's a little blip. This is what I've done.
Yeah.
You can speak more.
Yeah.
Candidly and hopefully positive about it. Just kind of touching before the kind of conclusion in terms of the insolvency regime and dealing with insolvency practitioners, and we as a profession, we're not trained counsellors, and our motivation generally and objective isn't the well-being of the director, but they're the people that trust us initially, and then just the circumstance of the case, it may well be that they're on the other end of a civil lawsuit from the same people that they were introduced to, you know, months or years ago. Might not like everything they do or say, but you know, is it because it's done with integrity and it's professional? Is that kind of?
It's done with integrity and professional, but also they are good humans. And you know, would I go to the pub with them? Yes, I would. And that's my kind of test of a human. Could it have been better? Could it have been an easier experience? I think it would have been a horrible experience regardless. But I think some of the language used, I think some of the, you know, an email you get through saying you need to fill out form, blah, 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 you know, and we need it by Tuesday next week. And your mind is mush and you don't know what this form means, or you don't know what that word means. So there's a lot of translation that doesn't happen. There's a lot of, you just need to do this and get it to us next week. And kind of, you're left in the lurch a little bit as to what that means, or what the implications are, or why you would be filling out that form. So I think someone humanizing the process would be very, very useful, because it is just a job, and it's a job that they do every day. They're so used to doing it, but they don't understand, I don't think, fully what the person on the other side of the desk or the table is going through. And you know, it is some days, do you want to get up and get the lift up to the 4th floor to go and talk to these people? Absolutely not. It's what you want to do least in the whole world, because you don't want to put your business into administration.
What has been your toughest decision?
I think we talked about it before. I think it's signing that bit of paper. Because at that point you're saying, right, that's the end of this. And it's something you never want to do. So was it a decision? It's probably not. It wasn't a decision to be made. It was already been made. But the hardest thing to do was sign that bit of paper. And that was very much one of those periods in your life where you're hovering somewhere up in the room and looking at yourself doing it. And that really wasn't enjoyable. But you probably your head is so mashed, and you know, you probably don't even realize you're doing it. It's like you're led in a room to do it, and that's, you know, you do it, and then you leave, and 2 days later you'll think, oh, did that, didn't I? Yeah, it was a very surreal experience. You don't have that often in life. Fortunately, they only come around about 6 or 7 times in your life, experiences like that, I think.
Yeah, that might be one only.